Steve, appreciate you making the time today, my man.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here.
You know, it's not very often that I get to interview someone from my hometown. You know what I mean? We're both Capital Region guys. And, you know, it's pretty cool that we're not sitting too far apart and getting to have this conversation. And one of the reasons that I wanted to have you on the show is, and I've brought this up on the show before, so the audience has heard me talk about it, but I coach my own kids in sports, and I was a basketball referee at a fairly high level, both at the high school and the college levels for 12 years. And I've just seen, it feels to me like every year the relationship between the adults and the kids becomes more toxic. And you've accumulated an incredible following, not just in our local community with your coaching program, but nationally as well. And you're working with incredibly high-level players. And what that tells me is the way you are talking about the relationship between coaches and kids, the way that you're addressing that relationship, how you're speaking to these young athletes is really resonating. So I'd love to start with, you know, where did your core philosophies come from? Like, we can get into exactly what they are, but what were the inputs into your life, into your career that helped you develop those and to be such a positive influence on kids?
Yeah, 100%. So I've been lucky. So my dad was a high school coach forever, before I was even born. And then he coached youth. He coached my brother all the way up, and then was an assistant on our high school teams. And then once we graduated high school, he went back to being a varsity head coach. And so I've always had a good perspective from him on the youth basketball landscape, the high school basketball landscape. And then my brother went on to be a college coach locally at UAlbany, Hudson Valley, and then down in Florida at an AIA school. So I got the insight, right, for like the college stuff through him. And then just in my own career, having, you know, played elite AAU on the Nike circuit and then Division II basketball and then overseas for 6 years, I went through all that as a player. And when I transitioned to being a trainer and a player development coach, typically what happens is these development coaches are in one level, right? You'll see their college MBA or their youth high school. And I have two businesses, one Dags Basketball, we do kindergarten all the way up through 12th grade. And then my national brand, Maximize Basketball, that's where we focus on our NBA clients, all of our national camps and clinics. And so I literally get every single level that I get to work with. And so I'm able to see, you know, obviously, like you're saying, with the adults and all the craziness of youth basketball, the high school recruiting, college landscape, and then the professional aspect as well, too. And so there's so many different variables that go in it, and I'm sure we'll get into a lot of them. But I've been lucky enough that I have experience in all the different levels.
Yeah. Why, you know, one of the things that got me out of reffing basketball, and I'll actually explain to you, you'll maybe even find this funny because you'll know the teams, but I was 12 years in reffing. I'd been to college camps. I'd done Division III. I'd done clinics at Division II level. I'd gone all the way to Glens Falls and done semifinals for state championship games for high school. Loved it. Loved every second of it. And the last 2 or 3 years that I was reffing, I noticed, and this was probably 2010 to 2013, I noticed a severe shift in the overall attitude that people had. It went from you know, winning, but in this like kind of the way that I was raised up and through it. There's always the competitive nature. There's always kind of that, you know, you have your rivals in your local communities, etc. But it became much more combative, much more individualistic, much more the parents yelling from the stands. And I had an experience. I was at Rensselaer High School for a freshman basketball game. Now, most of you listening to this will not know Rensselaer High School, but it is a Class C school in our area, which means it's fairly small. And it's a freshman basketball game. It's like a 4 o'clock game. This is one of those pickup games you get as a ref and whatever. And it ends up being a 30-point loss for Rensselaer High School. No big deal. This stuff all happens. It's all part of the game. I'm walking off the court after the game, and a parent walking through the crowd catches me with their shoulder and spins me around. Okay. And I turn and I look at this guy. Now, one, I'm 6'4", 200 pounds, and this dude makes me look like a Smurf. And he's looking at me like, if you take one step towards me, I'm going to take you out. And then he says, this is your fault. 30-point game on a freshman towards the end of the season, right? And it was like, at that moment, I lost all love for reffing basketball. It just killed it for me because that was accumulation of events. And my question for you is, where did that transition start to happen? I'd like to kind of talk about some of the root issues that we're seeing and some of the negatives, and then we can kind of layer in where we feel the solutions are and working with our kids and finding performance in our lives. Like, what have you seen that maybe started to make that transition? Because it happened. I mean, this is not like, oh, the previous generation, blah, blah, blah kind of crap. There is absolutely a different attitude in the way parents and not so much coaches, but especially parents interact with this game.
Yeah, 100%. I think at the youth level, it's different now, and I'm a player development coach, so I do a lot of like the training, and so I can see that parents are a lot more invested in their kids' youth sports now than maybe they were 20, 30 years ago. And I'm not saying like emotionally invested as far as like, hey, you want your kid to play sports and be well, but like the time and money that goes into it, and those both lead into stress, right? So like, hey, I'm investing this time, I'm investing this money, and then also now everything is on social media. So like you'll have, if you're a parent, you go on social media and just take AAU season, your kid's on one team, and then you go on social media and all these other teams are posting their championship, and I'll put it in quotes, right? Like t-shirts and pictures. And now you're like, man, I wish my kid was on that team and this. So there's all this like fear of missing out and trying to keep up with the Joneses. And it really takes away with like the best thing about youth sports is that it teaches kids how to be accountable, how to handle adversity, how to be part of a team, how to sacrifice. And like you were saying, we've lost a lot of that for like this manipulation of like trying to win games or having to be on the best team. And it leads to a ton of stress. And that stress is mostly there because of the adults. And then it gets taken out on whether it's a coach taking it out on the players, whether it's a parent taking it out on a coach, whether it's the parent or the coach taking it out on the refs. It's just, it manifests in all this chaos, and it's like, yo, just let the kids play.
Yeah. There's a local, you probably even know him, Danny Barbero, who's a local baseball trainer and performance coach. And my kids play baseball as well. And one of the parents of our team asked a question with no honest question about performance at the age of 11. And he's a particular guy, but he looks at her and he goes, he's fucking 11.
Yeah.
And it was like, it like took her, and this is nothing against her because her question was honest and it was not meant to be persuasive. But it literally, you could see that hit her like, oh yeah, they're just 11. Like, and so I guess my question is, at what point should, as a parent, if you have a kid who is dedicated to a sport and has made a commitment to being good, when do you think that age is that you shift into fifth gear with them? And when does that moment happen?
Yeah, so I think when they're younger, so I would say like, right, just take basketball, for instance, like typically these kids will be on teams starting in like third grade, right? And then like from third grade to seventh grade, I think it's very much like the parent kind of like leading the way a little bit. Like, hey, you're going to be on this team and you're going to go to this and this might help, this camp might help you, and you're leading the way. But when they get into like 8th, 9th, 10th grade, dude, the kids are going to tell you by their action. I can't tell you the amount of kids that come into our gym locally and you could tell they don't want to be there. And so, like, and it's extra work. So I get it, but at some point the kid is going to lead the way and you're going to be spending all this time and money and the kid's not even going to want to be there. My thought is, and there was actually a study, I was listening to Malcolm Gladwell podcast, and there was a study, they studied like elite runners in the UK when they were, I think, like 15. And what they did by the time they got up to 22, and like the smallest percentage of those elite runners at 15 ended up being elite at 22. And we sit here and there's all these like elite middle school teams and they're traveling all over the country, and it's like, dude, you can literally pick out the one or two kids. Like Andre Jackson's in the NBA for the Milwaukee Bucks. He was in 5th grade. You're like, whoa, that guy moves different. You know what I mean? Kevin Huerter, when he was in 7th grade, like, yo, that kid's got a chance. Mm-hmm. And so what we do is it's the intention behind it. It's, okay, I'm going to invest all this because I want my kid to be great, and they want to play college sports, and they're going to go play college basketball or college baseball. Dude, that shouldn't be the intention, because all of that is just a byproduct of how productive the kid is when they're on varsity, right? And so if the intention was, I'm going to invest in my kid, just say basketball training, because they're going to learn how to be dedicated to something, be disciplined, wake up early, go hard in training sessions, fight through adversity, struggle, learn how to come out on top. And then whatever they end up doing in high school, college, and beyond, this is going to help them there. That's how my philosophy has always been when we're training people. So like when they come in 8th, 9th grade and they're talking about college, like, you know, we lose all the crazies because we're not on the same page. That's not what we're looking to do.
Yeah. I know one of the things that I preach to my kids constantly is like, it's attitude and effort. That's what we're learning. At 4th grade baseball, at 5th grade basketball, you know, like, it's attitude and effort. Like, we're learning skills, we're learning how to show up, we're learning how to be proud of our performance. Like, I literally don't give a shit if you miss all 10 shots you take today. Like, it's meaningless. I mean, honestly, and I've been accused of this, I want to win, but I literally don't care if we win or not. Like, like in my brain, walking away from the field. And what's been interesting is the feedback that I've gotten from parents is like, you don't push them to win enough. And I'm like, you don't want that. Like, if I push them to win, you wouldn't like that side of what this looks like, because in 5th grade, these kids, half of them just learn to tie their shoes.
Yeah.
You know, it's like when you got to run out in the field and tie a kid's shoe, we should not be concerned about winning.
Yeah.
Like
100. You know, so I coach my daughter's 5th grade team. I also coach 3rd grade. The 3rd grade is like, you know, they're just learning whatever. But like 5th grade, I've had them now for a couple years. And so I am the same way as you. Like, we're going to compete to win, but I don't care whether we win or lose. I actually prefer, like, we lose, man, over 2 years, we've probably lost 7 games by like 1 possession. And part of the problem with our team is we're not focused. Like, we come in practice and it's not like we're on them, but they have a hard time. And you're not going to win close games if you're not focused. And so I actually like it because they're learning now, like, hey, you don't like losing by 1 point, 2 points, 3 points. We missed 10 foul shots. We didn't run this play and execute. And so it's helping us, right, like fight through adversity, lose, and now come back and practice and work on those things, right? And so I'm the same way as you. Like, dude, I do this for a living. So I could be as crazy as you need me to be. But in 5th grade, the biggest thing is not that we win games. It's not that we run a million plays. We have one play that we run. It's that your kid, by the time they're in 8th or 9th grade, if they want to do basketball, that then they're ready to be in the gym all the time and compete.
Yeah. And I do think, unfortunately for a lot of these kids, it's so much luck of the draw. You know, you call it dad ball, right? Like we call it, in baseball, we call it dad ball a lot. And you can see, literally, you see the teams that, you know, hit the jackpot because there's a dad who actually gets it, maybe played at a high level, understands, you know, has the perspective of like what we're doing here at this level, at this like 4th, 5th, 6th grade level. And then you got these dads that maybe never played on their varsity team or were, you know, whatever, didn't get to where they thought they should be, and now they're taking it out on the kids. And that experience is very difficult. You know, I guess just kind of wrapping up maybe the youth side of this, if you're a parent and your kid is on a team, you know, maybe you have good perspective, you understand, let's say it's a rational parent, but you're on a team where that head coach, that dad, whatever, who God bless him putting his time in, but just doesn't get it, right? Is the win at all costs, you know, over-indexing on these 5 kids that in 5th grade just are a little more athletic right now kind of thing. Like, do you recommend them looking for other teams? How do you address that? Because I do think this team hopping so young that happens in all these sports is not necessarily a positive. It seems to happen way too much. So how would you approach that as a parent if you were coming in and you just knew this coach just doesn't get it? He's too aggressive, he's yelling, it's the win at all costs kind of stuff.
Yeah, you know, obviously that's like never a good thing. You don't want to like rail on volunteers because they are giving their time, right? And I've always said like, yo, if you're going to complain about the volunteer coach, then you go coach. Yeah. Go do it. You know what I mean? Yep. And so that stinks. But, you know, kids if they're going to play sports and it's going to be competitive, they're going to have to deal with all different types of coaches. And so, you get a coach that maybe is not your style for a year. It's a good thing for your kid.
Yeah.
It's a good thing. And so how can you support your kid? And like, maybe they don't like getting yelled at and that coach is a yeller. Then how do you support them to get through it? And then once they get through it, they'll be able to deal with people like that, And so, and then as far as like finding another team, like, the team hopping is crazy, especially in basketball. I'm sure it's similar in baseball.
Yeah, it is.
The not having the continuity of players and coaches and all that is not a good thing for development. But if you are lucky enough to have like options, then, you got to balance it. What happens now is parents want the perfect situation. They want the best coach. They want their kid to play a ton. They want their kid to be the best player on the team. And that's not the case. You're almost never going to have that, right? And so you have to sacrifice in some areas. So if you're going to prioritize the coaching over everything, then you can't all of a sudden come back and be like, well, my kid's playing half the game. Yeah, but he could have played on this team where the coaching might not have been as good and they would have played the whole game. But you prioritize coaching. And so there's no perfect scenario. And so the parents have to really, hey, what do I prioritize? And if they're not in a great situation, maybe their kid's not playing a ton, great, support him through it, And then he should be stronger or she should be stronger because of that, and they got through it.
I love that response because I think one of the things I've seen, particularly with this generation or the past couple generations, they couldn't survive the way we were coached. I mean, I had a football coach pick me up by my face mask and shoulder press me into a fence because I got a personal foul, right? And this is the crazy part, and this is what I tell my kids. I'm flying through the air, literally slamming into a fence. I step up, and I'm like, I deserved that. Like, that was my mentality. It was not even that he was wrong for doing it. Today, he'd be in jail and be a national news story, right? I mean, this was just a Tuesday, afternoon game or whatever. And, my point in saying that is I love that answer because I feel like we don't take, as parents, we don't take the ownership of, I'm going to help my kid work through this tough situation. Instead, it's, I'm going to bitch to the league, I'm going to bitch to the coach, and then if none of that works, I'm going to take my kid out of this program and stick them in another program and expect that to be better. And what the kid learns is, if I don't like what's going on, mom and dad will come in and solve all my problems for me. And, so I guess operating with high, we'll call them high performers at the levels that they're at, or kids striving for high performance at the levels that they're at, and seeing that full spectrum. Can you start to pull out maybe a few of the core, I'd love to stay on mindset, right? Like the core mindsets that these types of kids tend to have versus those who fall away over time.
Yep. So we can get into the talent levels later, because obviously the more talented you are, the more opportunities you're going to have. But I would say this, and this is kind of like what I've come to realize with this generation. And this is, if everybody had this mindset of this is what you're trying to build in your kids, right, with youth sports. If you can get your kid to be competitive and resilient, you've done your job. Doesn't matter how many games you've won, what sport you're playing. You know this, when they get to college and beyond for life, if they're competitive and they're resilient, they're going to have a good chance to succeed, right? And so, like, for our development and our training, how do we put them in situations where they have to be competitive, wins, losses, right? Go as hard as you can. And then put them in adversity so they learn that failing is a good thing, and they're going to build up that resilience within themselves. Then go let them play whatever sport you want. Do start a business. You're competitive, you're resilient, you're going to figure it out. That's really what the mindset should be for youth sports and beyond.
How do you manage the competitiveness without over-indexing on the winning, right? Because I see some kids who are hyper-competitive, but they also do not understand how to handle a loss, right? If they're crying on the basketball court on a Tuesday night in the middle of the season because you lost a game and they're in 5th grade. And you love the competitiveness, you love the fact that they care, but they've so over-indexed on winning. How do you address that?
Yeah, clarity. And 5th grade, 6th grade may be too young for them to completely understand it, but they'll get it. Competitiveness is not the result. It's the action. Okay, what does that mean? you're focused, you're engaged, you're giving 100% effort, you're being physical, you're trying to do everything that you need to do to win the game. The result is separate from that, right? You could be more talented and not compete in a game and still win. That's not a good thing, right? So them understanding that result of winning is separate from the action of being competitive.
Yeah. How do you train resilience into a kid or coach resilience into a kid?
I think you put them into challenging situations, right? And so, like, we'll do it with, in our area, we've been lucky. We've had a ton of really good, like, shooters come out of this area. Joe Girard was at Syracuse and Clemson. Kevin Huerter's in the NBA. Joe Cremo was at Villanova. And so what we do is we try to get them in a situation, let's say they come in and we're doing shooting stuff, where they're not going to win every drill. I think, and this with coaching, you want every drill a lot of times to be like clean, and you want your kids to do it like really well. And part of what I've started to embrace is like chaotic drills, where like, you're going to lose, it's going to be messy, but you got to figure out a way to get through it. And so that inherently putting them through more adversity in everything that they do, then they tend to start figuring out, okay, I haven't beaten this shooting drill, 7 days in a row. And then on the 8th day they get it, boom, you did it, So we put that into all of our development stuff.
I love that. I love the idea of the chaotic drills. It's funny how, I played basketball in high school, but only because I was like the punching bag for the guys that were actually good. I was like the 12th man that just showed up with the jersey, and the starters just beat the shit out of me in practice, and that was my role. But in football, you see this a lot in football. I was more of a football and baseball player. And in football, this is like a given. Like, you're going to get knocked down. Like, you're going to be bleeding. You're going to be bruised. But in a lot of the other sports, I've seen the contact side of the game that like you said, I hadn't framed it in my head as chaotic drills. I love that. I'm going to put more thought into that idea. I think that's a good life lesson. I think handling chaos is a life skill, not just a sports skill. And I really think that's wonderful. So let's say you have a kid who's never been exposed to this before, right? They hit 8th, 9th grade. They have some talent. They may have some drive to be good, but they have been sheltered, or they have been maybe kind of moved around to places where they could be successful without real challenges. How do you introduce them to them? Is just throw it to the fire? Do you have like a methodology that you take them through? Like, how do you get them introduced to this chaotic nature? Because to me, it feels fairly unique.
Yeah, I think it depends on the kid, right? And really how, opposed to contact and all that they are, but we throw them right to the fire. I mean, most of the time there's no, especially when they're in 8th, 9th grade, younger kids. Yeah. Okay. You ease them into it. But most of our drills are, when we're doing, let's just say like finishing drills, which is like layups around the basket and stuff, we'll work on some like on air, meaning it's just like reps 1-on-0, but most of them are live. They're 1-on-1. It's a defender pushing you out. It's a rebounding drill where, again, 2 guys or 2 girls are pushing against each other. And so the more they're exposed to that contact, the more comfortable they get in it. But you can't talk your way through that. You have to experience it. That's my biggest thing too with like with youth kids and high school kids and all that, right? I always hear coach like, well, I told them. Yeah, but when you were a kid, you didn't listen to any adults. You learned from experience, right? And so, yeah, as coaches, we want to keep telling them. And so they're hearing the same things over and over again, so that once they do experience, they're like, oh, crap, that's what he was talking about. They don't just learn by saying, hey, you got to be more physical. No, throw them in a physical drill, be physical, get beat up for 2, 3, 4, 5 days, and then you figure out how to be comfortable with it, So we throw them right to the fire. It's the only way.
I want to transition to, let's say, someone who really does have talent, right? I reffed Kevin Huerter, and it was obvious when he was playing in 7th grade at 7th grade Capital District as a 5th grader. He was playing on the 7th grade team, and he was the starting point guard and competing at a high level, two ages above him. I mean, it was obvious. How do you make sure that kid doesn't flame out, fizzle out, ego doesn't get a bit too big, how do you keep that hyper talented individual? How do you keep them focused on the task at hand and moving forward? And because there's almost as many or more pitfalls that player can fall into than the kid who's 12th on the bench that's trying to make the team, that's just, running as hard as they can.
People think it's like such a good thing for their kid to be the best player in middle school, and I would almost argue that it's not. That you're better off having them like not be the best player and be chasing, because that best player can be complacent. And so like, how do you fight complacency? I think the kid has to constantly be challenged. I think that they have to not only play in a space where, okay, they can go be the best player and kill because they are the best player, but then go play against older kids too, where they get beat up a little bit and they're not the best player. And so it's hard. And again, the kid's going to lead the way. And so a lot of these kids, when they're in middle school and they're the best player, you haven't, in middle school, you don't even know what hard work is, and so you're just talented. And so when you get to high school, some of these kids they're not that personality where they're going to put in the extra work, especially as others keep catching up to them. And so what you're trying to develop, again, is that competitiveness, the resilience, and then that work ethic, right? And that comes from the people that you have around them and the perspective that they have. And I think that's where, there's, in our area, Ryan, this is crazy. I did it with my camera guy the other day. There's at least 16 other trainers, player development coaches that do like workouts and stuff. Dude, I'm all for it. There's enough kids. Dude, I don't care. But a lot of times you're going to work out with these people, but now you're listening to them too. And so if you're not hearing the right things, then your mindset when you go back to your high school team is going to be off, right? Your mindset on how the world actually works, the world of basketball, whatever sport, is going to be warped. And I think that's what ends up happening is not only do the players have they don't really have clarity on how basketball. These kids, when they're freshmen, are like, well, offers. Dude, unless you're a top 100 player, you're not getting a scholarship offer in freshmen. Colleges aren't recruiting freshmen and sophomores unless you're the best player in the country, right? And so, but they're hearing that, and that's what they're focused on. And the parent gets hyper-focused, and they get more stressed, and it's that whole snowball, And so I think it's like I said before, it's not only the training, it's the perspective. You have to have somebody that's giving you the right information, because if you don't have the right information, you're going down the wrong path.
The other thing too is playing Division III sports is pretty fucking fun. Like the fact that so many, now not we shouldn't shoot for as high as we can possibly go, right? I'm not saying that, but there's this. I've heard from parents and different stuff. Like I played Division III baseball. I loved it. I played against guys. I played against a couple guys that that ended up going and playing AAA, right? It was good baseball. I had a fun career. I played a little baseball after college as well. I don't think anything to me, it's not a miss. I came from, you might know where Nassau is, right? The tiny town of 900. Escaping that town was the best thing that ever happened to me. So my point in saying all that is we put these expectations on our kids that if they don't go to a name brand Division I school, that somehow their sports career has been less than it should have been. And it's if your kid gets the opportunity to play college sports, they're the best of the best in the high school level. There's going to be best of the best of the best. Yeah, they're playing at the Kentuckys and North Carolinas and all this kind of stuff. And sure, that's great. But how many players on those teams? 12? 15 if you count the practice players, maybe 20 with a practice team. That's 20 guys for 150 schools that potentially have a chance of making the NCAA tournament. So that's not that many kids out of all the kids that play the sports. So I sometimes feel like we put so much pressure on these kids to reach these levels, and it's there are so many avenues for them to take these skills that they're learning and make successful lives that are rewarding out of them. I don't ever want to tell anybody that they shouldn't shoot as high as they should possibly go. They absolutely should. But I think we've lost perspective a little bit on what a win actually looks like out of all this effort that we put in.
The expectation of the Division I college basketball is so blown out of proportion that people don't even know what they want. Meaning, if you're good enough, where you play in college is a byproduct of how well you do in high school when you're a junior and a senior, whether it's high school or AAU, right? And so the focus now is, well, we got to do this to go to college and that. No, you have to try and be, if you're into it, the best high school player that you can be. And guess what? There's not many players that should be playing in college that weren't good high school players. Because when you're in high school, if you're the best player, it's going to show that you're the best player, right? And so we have this expectation from that, from when they're younger. It's like Division I, Division II, Division III, college. And you're sitting there and you're like, why not just try to be the best high school player you can be and develop all these life skills? And then if your talent raises and you're productive, all that other stuff is going to come. The second part would be, so I'm a junior national team coach with USA Basketball. And so there's like 15 or 16 of us. And during COVID, we had all these Zooms. And one of them was with a Harvard professor. And she was saying how they've been doing like a study on student athletes at the college level. And there was, and I know the number was over 60%. I want to say it was like 70% of the student athletes had some form of anxiety and depression. And for those people that have played college basketball or college sports, it's hard. It's really hard. And guess what? You're not going to be happy. You're not going to be happy most of the time unless you really, really love what you're doing and you can handle, like we've been saying, the adversity, those hard times. Yeah. Right? And so I always say when these people are chasing this, like, okay, would you rather your kid be a college basketball player or would you rather them be happy? Like, well, happy. Well, then wait. You're pushing college over happy. You don't even know if you want college basketball. You don't even know if your kid wants college basketball. But yet you're pushing this notion that, and to your point, I played Division II. I don't care what level you go to. I mean, obviously for all these organizations and businesses that have players, you want them to go to the highest level, right? I'm the opposite. We had a kid who's probably the best player in the area right now. And he was choosing between Johns Hopkins, Tufts. I think he's a Division I player. Those are high academic Division III schools. And we had a conversation. I'm like, dude, you're going to go to Johns Hopkins. And in 10 years, you're going to be looking back and be like, oh, my God, I can't believe that I was going to go to, name a low Division I school. It doesn't matter. This school, that. I don't even want to name any because I don't want to disrespect anybody, right? But you're looking at it from such a short lens of like, yo, Johns Hopkins, man, are you crazy? You got to go to Johns Hopkins, And so like, if the focus was just be the best you can in high school, if you're productive enough and good enough, somebody's going to want you. And then hopefully you choose that right situation that's going to benefit you the most for your future.
Yeah. I mean, I can tell you as a Division III. So I got a couple opportunities to play Division II as a baseball player. And I ended up going to the University of Rochester. And Johns Hopkins is one of the schools that we played against for baseball. Yep. And, Division III sports are fun. Guess what we did the night before games? We went out and we chased women and drank beers. And then we showed up the next day and played a doubleheader. Yep. Like, I mean, I'm not saying to take away. We trained hard. We practiced every day. It was a full-time thing. We took it very seriously. But, like, the point is, like, we had fun. Like, after a doubleheader, if we were sleeping over in that town, we would hang out with the other teams and go out to their bars and, like, have a good time. Like, you can't do that shit at the Division I level. Like, that's not top. Like, there's that level, you are playing at a level where, like you said, and I'm not saying you can't have fun in Division I. I got plenty of buddies that did, and it's all good, and I'm not knocking that. I'm just saying that I think, to your point, like, Johns Hopkins is a meal ticket for a career, for having a job the rest of your life. Like a good job that you could, that's going to make you money, let you provide for your family, whatever you want. Like, it's there. And I guess I want people to push as hard as they can and be everything they can be with an understanding, to your point. I love that this is the way you're framing this, that of what you're actually going to get out the back end of making that decision. Like
and we phrase it, not to cut you off, but the way that it's framed to these kids by the parents and the other, AU coaches, trainers, decision makers, is that the college level is like good, better, best. It's not the case. It's not the case because everybody's different. So what? So you get a Division I scholarship to a low Division I school that's better than going to a Tufts or a Williams or a Johns Hopkins? Not in 20 years, it's not. Yeah. And so again, and this goes back to the right information. Do you have somebody that can frame it in the way so that you and the kid and the parent can still make the choice on what they think is better for them, but they have all the right information. You have all of it, you know?
Let's transition to your actual business. And one of the things that I've, just watching, living in the same community, our kids go to the same school, like watching your brand, your business grow, and I was watching one of your Instagram videos the other day, and like I clicked on your profile just to I'm always interested. I like the way you talk to the kids. I follow you because I'm interested in it. And I go, holy shit, this dude's got 120,000 people that follow him on Instagram. And like numbers are numbers. I don't want to make it, but like, dude, you're a basketball trained performance development coach from upstate New York, and you have 120,000 people that find your and the engagement's incredible. So, and my point in framing all this for the audience is that you have been consistent. You've obviously dialed in on a message. And you're delivering a product that's valuable, incredibly valuable. How does someone who maybe is sitting there going to themselves, well, I'm from a small town. Albany's not a big market. For those listening, we're 154th largest market in the country. How does someone who has a message, who could be coaching, let's take coaching for someone who's coaching today. They played sports, they love kids, they want to do what you're doing. They're 15 years behind you. How do they start delivering a message? How do they start building their business so that they can have greater impact than just the kids that they're coaching? And not that they shouldn't focus on the kids they're coaching, but obviously you're having an impact well outside of just the humans that are sharing air with you.
Yeah. So I think a couple of things. When I started the Dags Basketball, which is the local business, it was I'm just reacting to what the market is, right? And there wasn't a ton of honesty and value. Right. And so what I've always said is whatever we do, we're going to try to provide the most value, and we're going to mess up. We're going to have days where we're not great, but for the most part, we're going to try to provide great value. And then we're going to be honest. We're going to be honest with the players. We're going to be honest with the parents. And I think that social media following is there because of those two things. People see like, whoa, there's value in this, and it's honest. It's not some unauthentic, like, somebody trying to do it because I want to be famous. If I could not do social media, I would not do social media.
Yeah.
But the fact of the matter is that the people who get more opportunities are the ones that have a great social media following. So I have to do it. And so all you're seeing on there is like actual conversations that I would have with our parents and players and during our training sessions, And so I think that helps. I think the other thing is it's crazy. I can't remember like our area having as many high-level players as we have right now. Andre Jackson with the Bucks, Kevin Huerter with the Sacramento Kings, Boo Buie just signed with the New York Knicks. I know I'm missing a handful of players. I mean, we had guys at Villanova, Syracuse, like I mentioned before, North Carolina, and I think. What happened, in like that small period of time in Albany, New York, is I was able to work with all those players, and it wasn't anything that I did, but they were all around each other, and they all had a similar perspective, right? And so like when, like Andrew Platek played at North Carolina, before he went there his freshman year, I remember being in the gym with Joe Cremo and Kevin Huerter, who were both, high major players, and Platek was saying how, what he thought that North Carolina would be like, and we were all sitting there like, you're going to learn, buddy, what you think it's going to be like, and after your freshman year is going to be. And so you have all these people that have real life experience. It's not somebody spewing some crap so that their business makes more money, right? And so I think, I always say this, especially it helps when you have NBA players. If I was in New York City or Los Angeles or Miami, I'd have, triple the amount of NBA players that I work with now. But I'm home in Albany, New York. So whoever comes in the gym, we're going to do the best job. And it's been crazy to see the success of some of our players. And, it's on them because they're the ones who have to decide who they listen to and how they go about their business. So it's been cool to be a part of it. That's for sure.
For the parents listening out there, what's the filter, or is there a filter that you can recommend for someone who's trying to bullshit them to sell a $300 program and the coach who's there to really help their kid get better? Like how would you filter that out for them?
It's so hard because, ready? I've been doing this for a long time, right? And so this is like not what we do, but I think I could my revenue could double easy. Ready? Hey, Rye, Duke and Colton are they're some of the best basketball players that I've seen. Like really, if they like locked in and really trained a couple times a week, I think that they could end up being like some of the best players in the area. What are you going to do? You're going to say, oh no, this guy's BSing me.
I'll be honest with you, I was reaching for my wallet, right? I was like reaching under here. I'm like, is he serious? I got
You know, and so like it's so hard for the parents. Like somebody wants to compliment your kid and say that they're doing really, really well. You're going to be like, oh man, I knew my kid was pretty good, you know? And so it's that your question of the BS filter. It's hard because that's all you have to do. I think over time, though, you figure out, like a lot of the trainers, you know, I think there's two things. One, a lot of them do it because they want themselves to be famous. They want to be famous and they want more for themselves. And then, you know, the other ones are, I think they're good-hearted, but they might not have like the background and really the capabilities to really, really like help a kid. So they think they're helping them, but they're maybe not as much as they think they are. And so, listen, at the end of the day, it's this. If your kid's in middle school and they're putting in extra work, no matter what that work is, it's a good thing, dude. It's a good thing, right? And I think, so I've been doing a lot more consulting now. And to me, the number one thing that a person could do, if you're going to spend money on anything, is find somebody that's been through it and knows what they're talking about and invest the money and let them give you an honest opinion of your kid. Hey, here's an honest opinion. Here's what the landscape is. You know, we had a guy from Massachusetts who hopped on a consultation the other day, and his son's a really good baseball player, really good basketball player. And he's like, hey, he doesn't know which one to choose. What should he be doing? He's in 9th grade. And so we went through the whole landscape, and he decided at the end, like, you know what? We're going to stay with baseball. We're going to train a little more for basketball in like our hometown, get in the gym with our high school coach and stuff. And then when he gets to like 10th grade, maybe 11th grade, see how things shake out. See how tall he ends up being. He's, you know, he's 6 foot guard. You know, does he go and he started on varsity baseball in 8th grade? You know, like, I don't think you got to choose right now, but at least he's got better clarity on, oh wait, I don't have to go to every AAU tournament as a 9th grader because I'm not going to be seen. Dude, nobody's looking for you in 9th grade. You know, that's the one thing that I would do as your kid gets up there, because then you're operating with, again, the right information.
Steve, I love the way you approach this. For someone who's listening to this and they want to, guys, I'm going to have links to, regardless if you have kids in youth sports or not, I highly recommend that you follow Steve's Instagram. I'm going to have the links as well as links to his website in the show notes, whether you're watching or listening, guys. Just to see the way he presents himself, the way he presents his product. If you don't have kids, if you do have kids, the way he talks about the sport, I can attest to the honesty, the authenticity, and just the directness of how you approach certain topics. I think is phenomenal. But if someone's listening and wants to work with you or wants to come and get a consultation because they have a kid that might be at an age and has a tough decision like the one that you just described, like how do they get a hold of you? What's the best way to get into your ecosystem?
Yeah, so if they're outside of the area, just Maximize Basketball is the name of that company, maximizebasketball.com. All the information for the consultations, online courses, to come in if they want to come fly up here and work with us or need us to come down there. And then if they're local, it's just dagsbasketball.com. And all that is on my Instagram. So if they follow my Instagram, Steve Dag0, they'll be able to get all that information.
Awesome, brother. I appreciate you and I appreciate the time.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It's fun.
Let's go. Yeah, make it look easy. Hey, stand up.
Thank you for listening to The Ryan Hanley Show. Be sure to subscribe and leave us a comment or review wherever you listen to podcasts.
Came in the game for me. I never switched up, no change in me. The only